we've got Rebecca, pronoun she, her, calling in from I almost said Kentucky Yaks, but Kentucky is the first word in that. Kangaroo yo-yos. Are they on the yo-yos, or do the yo-yos belong to the kangaroos? Stupid. Who is deconstructing fundamentalist, who has some questions. She says the questions about science and also proofs and disproofs for God. I want to hear the God stuff first because I've been talking for a real fucking long time. Rebecca, you're on the line with Forrest and Justin. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing okay. How are you guys?
Never had a bad day.
Rebecca, what's in your mind?
First off, I just want to say, I really appreciate, you guys doing the show and stuff. Also, I want to say I have, super bad anxiety, so I might get kind of stressed out during this call.
Nothing to be anxious about. Justin is very nice, and I'm an idiot.
Just take a breath. There's no rush. No one's here to make you look silly. So just go ahead and tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah. So, I've been watching your show for a while, Justin, and wanting to call in because, I was raised Christian, my whole life, and I was homeschooled and stuff. And as far as, I just have a lot of questions of, I'm to the point where I'm not really sure. Sorry, I might get emotional, too. I cry a lot when I talk about stuff like this.
It's okay.
I guess I'm to the point where I'm not really sure that I believe anymore, but I'm having a really hard time with that.
Right.
And it's been making me really anxious, and I want to be able to come to a conclusion about something, but I have a hard time being convinced either way, because I'll listen to your show and then it'll make sense to me, and then I'll talk to my mom about a lot of things, and she'll kind of give me her opinions, and they kind of also make sense. And I guess I'm kind of stuck in the middle.
Okay.
So
really quick, Rebecca, we're having some people ask how old you are because we're it's just kind of an ethical line that we try not to talk to anybody under 18.
Yeah, I'm 21. Sorry, I know I sound really young.
Okay, that's fine. Just as long as we're on the same page about that. Because I don't want to have anybody saying we're, corrupting the youths, influencing the children. Okay, I'm going to leave you with Justin for just 1 second. I'll be right back. I got to step away for just a second, but I'll be 2 seconds.
So, Rebecca, let me encourage you first, right? So the process that you're engaging in is not something that happens overnight. You're questioning your beliefs and you're hearing one side of the aisle, and then you're hearing the other side of the aisle. It can feel like you're getting yo-yoed back and forth. This is normal. What you're experiencing is normal. I went through it myself. In fact, I was stubborn. It took me 10 years to get from the point where I have serious concerns to a point where I feel like I could confidently say, okay, this thing can't be true. So don't feel like you need to do it all overnight. Take as much time as you need to ask all the questions, find all the answers that satisfy your curiosity, and then, and then keep on moving from there. I would make one recommendation if I could. This is a very difficult thing to go through. When I went through mine, I think I kind of went through mine alone, and I had, panic attacks, and I went weeks without sleeping. And I was in this weird, isolated emotional state where I was, as a grown adult, I was coming to terms with the fact that, and that's perfectly normal. And it takes a while to work through that. It's really hard at first. And so I specifically remember there was a time I was at work and I couldn't get anything done. The only thing on my mind was okay, I've come to the conclusion that there's no afterlife. My religion's not true. like the end of this life is all there is. And I'm thinking, like, I want to pull my hair out because I'm like, how is nobody talking about this? This seems like the most important thing anyone could ever talk about. It's fucking crazy that no one's talking about it. How does anyone get work done? And I slowly came to the realization that, a lot of the people I work with, first of all, still believe, but the ones that don't, most of them they weren't raised in the faith. They came to grips with this fact of reality before they even left their teens, right? So, like, what you're doing and what I'm doing is we're kind of doing that work now, but later on. Like, we're coming to grips with that fact way after what a lot of people do. And it's difficult because, like, we were convinced that we're just going to live forever.
Yeah.
But, like, please don't feel like what you're going through is like a problem for you specifically, because it's not. It's a problem that all of us go through. And being that it was so long ago for me, I can confidently tell you that you will eventually come out on the other side, and it won't be something that debilitates you. It won't be something that keeps you up at night. It won't be something that prevents you from living your life to the fullest. But at the beginning of it, it really fucks you up. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's really important. I would highly recommend talking to a secular therapist if you have the opportunity to help you work through and kind of equip yourself with some of the tools to kind of cope with this particular reality, because it's new to you, but it's not going to be new to your therapist. This won't be the first time your therapist is hearing this.
Yeah. Yeah, I've wanted to do that for a while. I just, also in my family, I grew up in a family where mental health wasn't really a thing. So I've kind of had to deal with a lot of that on my own, and even coming to terms with the fact that, like, I do struggle with mental health stuff. Like, for a while, that wasn't really something that my family even believed was real. So
Yeah.
that's something that I've just recently.
Yeah. It's real. It certainly is real. I lost an aunt to mental health a long time ago, and sometimes people don't take it seriously until they lose a loved one, but, like, I think we're in a better age nowadays where most people understand that mental health is a real thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're old enough that you can get it. Like, I don't know if you're in school or if you're working or a combination of
Not right
both,
now,
but
no.
okay. There should be.
I am working,
Do you
but I'm
have
not in school.
Do you have insurance?
No, all right, no. That's one of the
Okay.
things that's been, like, a big barrier for me, because I know, like, I've looked into stuff, but it's expensive, and so,
It is. Yeah, it is expensive. Are you in our Deconstruction Junction Discord yet?
Yeah, I just joined it, like, the other day.
Okay, send me a DM. We can probably, I think we can put something together to get you started with some therapy for next to no cost. Or we can fundraise and raise the money for you. Like, I'm more than happy to fundraise the money to get you some therapy sessions. Because this is important.
Also, RFR is a good resource.
Yes, recovering from religion is a free resource that you can tap into for sure.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And this is a frustrating time. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be a little bit angry about it too. I know you feel like a whole range of emotions. Let yourself feel the emotions. Like, this part of the process, to me, I felt like I went through all the stages of grief. Like, when you lose a loved one, I went through all those stages of grief when I left the religion, right? But I can, everyone's process is different. I can give you one piece of advice that I think helped me, or like one mindset that helped me. And that was like, someone gave a really good example. Like, if you're watching a movie, like, even though that movie is going to end, you want to enjoy that movie until it ends, right? And so, like, I wake up every day and I think to myself, you know what? I'm going to die one day, but it's not fucking today. I'm going to live the shit out of this day. I'm going to make it a good day, right? So, and I go to bed every day knowing that I did the most with the day that I had to live, and I don't worry about I don't let death consume my thought process. Like, when I was first deconstructing, my thought process every day is, what am I going to do today to live this day to the fullest? Because I have this day. This day is now. This is mine.
Yeah, I guess that's something that's hard for me because, like, one of the questions I kind of wanted to ask is, like, finding, like, meaning in my life has been hard. Like,
right.
Thinking of there not being a God, not being, like, heaven or anything. Like, I guess, like, finding, like, purpose and meaning.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I think I had a slight I don't want to say a struggle with mine because I'm such a decisive personality. Like the minute I realized that God didn't
Definitely
define my
not me.
purpose, yeah. That's like, everyone's so unique. That's why like sometimes I'm cautious about relating my deconstruction experience to be like everyone else's because they're all going to be different. But like, for example, when you're a believer, your whole goal is like trying to figure out what God's purpose is in my life. And it's interesting because typically when people claim to have figured it out, it's remarkably similar to what they wanted their purpose to be to begin with, right? So the reality is you probably have desires already. You probably have goals that you want to accomplish. And now you get to decide, right? You get to decide, hey, this is something that I really enjoy. You know what I mean? And I think I'm good at it. So why shouldn't I set this purpose for myself? And others have their purpose, say like in raising a family, or say I'm going to pour all of me into my children because they are they're the purpose for me right now, and they're the future, right? So like I think the neat thing about leaving religion is now you're the arbiter of what your purpose is. You don't have to have some person telling you that your purpose is to be in a kitchen barefoot and pregnant. You don't have to do that anymore. Like you get to decide, and there's no limit. You can be an astronaut, you could be a biologist, you could be anything you want to be now, and you don't have to rush it to find out. But take some time thinking to yourself, what makes you excited? Like when you're doing something, you're like, man, this is really gets me excited. That's an indicator that, hey, this is something you should invest some time and attention to.
I just got back. I'm sorry, I had to step out of the room for a minute, but like on this particular topic, when we're talking about like finding purpose and finding meaning, I personally find like the best way to do that is to find the intersection between what you are very passionate about and very good at, and like the thing that gets you out of the bed in the morning, like Justin's talking about. Find where that intersects with what the world needs right now. I think the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of other people. And if you are doing that in a way that makes you excited, makes you happy, you are never going to have a bad day in your fucking life. If you told me if you woke me up out of a dead sleep at 4 a.m. on a Sunday and told me there's a group of kids that want to hear some shit about evolution, I'd jump out of that fucking bed like Mario. I'd be out there. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I also am pretty damn sure that getting a good science education improves people's lives, and it improves the lives of the communities around them, not only because they know more about the world, but it teaches them how to think better, how to think critically. And so like that is the intersection for me between what I think the world really needs and what I really fucking love. And I feel very purposeful and very full of purpose and very full of hope and motivation and excitement every day because of that. So I would encourage you to try that. If you don't know what you want to be with your life right now, if you don't know what you want to do, awesome. The coolest 40-year-olds I know don't know what they want to be when they grow up. But if you want to learn pretty quickly what you're good at and what really makes you happy, go donate some time to charity. Go volunteer somewhere, see where you fit in best and what makes you smile. And then when you notice you're doing that for other people and not just for you, I think you're going to have no problem at all finding the humanitarian aspect, the purpose aspect, all those different things for your life.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about doing anyway, because I'm, I've just been so like in my head lately, and I really want to like do something, especially for other people.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person where I'm like when I have something like this that's bothering me, I will like not get out of bed for weeks because I just get really in my head.
Get fixated.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah.
Reach into the choir,
I
girl.
definitely hyperfixate a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that it's so important not to let yourself spiral like that. Even if you're like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm gonna put pajamas or clothes on and some slippers, and I'm gonna go down to the Dollar General and buy some milk and eggs. Like I'm gonna do something to get out of this house, to get out of this bed, even if it's something minute. You know what I mean? Because we have a tendency as human beings to get into that downward spiral, especially when we're thinking about things that make us anxious or depressed, and we can all get that way. It happens to all of us, and so it's important to recognize it and do something to break the cycle. I know for me, the thing that helps the most is just going to the gym, running on the treadmill, lifting some weights. Or for some people, it's like, you know what? I need to go get a drink with a friend. Like we got to go. I need some tequila. We got to go have a good time. We need to laugh. We need to share some stories. So like everybody has a thing that can help to get them out of that spiral. And you probably know what it is for you already. I think sometimes it helps to have a friend who knows you, that can say, like, call you, like, I feel like you need to leave the house, come meet me at such and such. I have people in my life, if they don't hear from me, they're going to show up at my door.
Yeah.
I would remind, like, we live in a culture right now, social media, where everybody's putting the craziest, happiest moments of their life online all the time. And if they're not happy, they just put on a big smile and put it online so everybody thinks they are. And that's how we see. And we see that on our feed, and we see that in front of us all the time. And then we look around our own life, which, just like everyone else's life, is pretty fucking normal. And there are some times where we look like the people in those pictures, but there's other times where we're just pooping, and we're just sitting on the floor just trying to figure out what we're going to do with our day. And today I had to get a bagel, and that's what you know what I mean? And it's whatever. But we turn on the TV, we turn on TikTok, we open up Instagram, we do these things, and it's just happy, exciting, crazy, sensational news and all the terrible things in the world and all these amazing people doing crazy things. And we think that's what life is, and it fucking isn't, Rebecca. And so what I think is really important, especially if you're going through these kind of depressive feelings and you're going through these struggles of like getting off the floor, out of bed, girl, same. But one of my favorite philosophers, Seneca, Seneca once said, sometimes just to live is an act of courage. And I think that's really important to remember, that you may be comparing yourself to all these things. You may feel down on yourself because you're looking at everybody else around you. You may feel down on yourself because you're comparing yourself to the ideal version of yourself. Let me tell you about how I do that every goddamn day. You want to know why I'm so cool at taking criticism on this channel and why I take calls from people who want to criticize me all the time? It's because I've yet to take a call from somebody who says anything meaner to me than I say to myself every night. And so, like, at the end of the day, though, getting up, getting out of bed, going to the gym, talking to your friends, playing Xbox, making yourself breakfast, like, every bit of life is sometimes an act of great courage. And I think just focusing on that and being like, you know what? I don't fucking owe anybody an explanation or a justification for myself and who I am and how I'm feeling. I don't owe anybody an apology for not getting out of bed today. Fart around I must, and fart around I shall. And everybody else who has a problem with it can suck every genital I own, because my day today will be about self-care, and the world will continue turning the same way that it did for billions of years before I was born. It's fine. And that moment is going to be great for you. I think that's something you can do at any time and be okay. And when you get really good at it, call back and tell me how. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing, because like I said, my entire family is very religious, so I've not really had like like as far as Justin said, is like having a person to kind of motivate you. I have my best friend, and she kind of has gone through the same thing. She was basically raised in a cult, and she's kind of gone through the same thing that I did. And so I kind of have her. But like as far as like all my family and other friends, like everybody in my family and distant family is religious and all the same type
Right.
of religious. And so it's really hard to kind of like even get, like I didn't even really start asking a lot of these questions. I had them, but I didn't really find answers to them until this past year because like Trump getting elected did a lot of that for me because my family was always super conservative. And so that's how I grew up and that's how I thought I should vote and all of that. And then I saw like what was actually happening and I was like, this doesn't really seem to fit with even what my family actually believes. Like,
Mhm.
I was always taught like kindness and, taking care of the poor and stuff like that. And so then it was like, this doesn't really seem like what I was actually even taught. And I don't know why I even think this way. But it's just kind of that's what was told to me. Like, this is how you should vote because, you don't want these people to be in control and make Christianity illegal or whatever. um,
Yeah.
Right.
so it was always kind of
And
like,
I had the
yeah, I
same
just
background
kind
as
of
you,
got
Rebecca.
stuck there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once the demonic boogeyman of the left, like these demonic atheists voting for the liberal causes, like once that boogeyman kind of disappears, it can be pretty hard to bring yourself to vote for the Republican Party just because of
Yeah.
their whole platform is built on the religion and having to fight the darkness with light, right? And once you realize that it's all fiction, you're like, well, they don't really have anything to offer.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was really hard, and then especially seeing my best friend go through deconstructing and the way some people in my family treated that, it was like, do I really want to be in this if, you know, if asking questions, like if I can't ask questions about what I believe, then is it really worth believing? And, if people are going to get mad at me for asking those questions, like I would think that if God's real, that he could handle that and it
Mhm.
not be a thing where you can't ever question anything that you believe.
Yeah, I mean that's something you'll hear at like Bible college or in seminary. Like your professors, like if you go to like hermeneutics 101, part of the hermeneutical process is trying to tear down bad ideas and beliefs and build better ones. But in that, you have to question what you believe. And you'll often be told, like, it's okay to question things. Like, God can
Yeah.
handle your questions and your concerns. If not, he isn't God. Now, it turns out that God can't handle all the questions and concerns if he doesn't exist, which seems to be the, the most, the most rational answer to some of the questions. Um, but that being said, if you're around friends and family that they can't tolerate your deconstruction process, I mean, I super recommend trying to build new community, even if it's online through the Discord and the TikTok. Two communities that are really heavy on deconstruction, where you'll find like-minded people asking the same
Yeah.
questions and trying to find answers to new questions.
Yeah. That's what I've been trying to do a lot lately. Um, and, some of my family is better about it than others. And I've always found like, you can ask questions to a certain point, but then, once you start asking certain questions, it's like, oh, well, that's not a question that, you're allowed to ask. Like, you know, you can only ask the questions that are easy to answer is kind of what I've found
Right?
with a lot of like religious people. And as
Yeah,
far as
because
like,
it's
sorry, as far
inconvenient
as
for
like
them
with
to
science
have
and
to
stuff,
tolerate the difficult ones.
yeah. Yeah, as far as like with science and stuff, I guess I have like a few questions for Forrest. Because like I grew up with I got like my grandma actually worked for the Creation Museum, and I grew up with like watching Ken Ham videos constantly.
My condolences.
Yeah, so I didn't even really understand, like, evolution was so misrepresented to me when I was little. I didn't really understand it at all. And I really, like, it was crazy to me. I was watching, like, your videos, Forrest, and the Gutsick Gibbon channel. I was watching her videos, and it was like, I never understood, like, how simple and easy to understand this is, because it was always misrepresented in like the stuff that I watched. And so I guess like, how would you like simply explain like evolution to, like, how could I explain that to my family in a way that it might more make sense to them? Because I think even like my mom and my siblings also are kind of in the same boat that I was at, where they don't really even understand what it actually means.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is just understanding the definition. And it's really common among creationists to say the definition of evolution is a frog shits out a monkey, which turns into a human because it wants to. You know what I mean? Like that is what you get all the time. And so you can grab yourself, just pop on down to your local library and grab yourself your favorite introductory evolution textbook. This is the one that I used in my undergrad, Evolution Making Sense of Life. I've taught out of this thing more times than I can fucking count. Crack that biscuit open, and here, biological evolution. Any change in the inherited traits of a population that occurs from one generation to the next, i.e., over a time period longer than the lifetime of an individual in the population. That is literally the textbook definition of what evolution is. Any change in the heritable characteristics of a population over the course of multiple generations, right? That's a great place to start. If you want to explain how it works and like what it actually is, start with the concept of natural selection and go this way, okay? Just write this down. 3 things. Number 1, we can all agree that genes exist and they are passed down from parent to offspring, right? You got these genes, not the blue ones on your legs, but the squiggly ones in your cells. And they are passed down from parent to offsprings, and they dictate what your body is and does. That's mostly true, but it's good enough, right? Second thing, everybody can agree, everybody can understand, genes come in different flavors. We call these alleles, right? There is no one single gene for eye color, for hair color, for height, for whatever. There's different alleles, different versions of these genes, right? And depending on what alleles you have, you're going to have different characteristics. You're going to have a different, what we call a phenotype, right? You're going to look different. You're going to act different. You're going to live different. Yeah. And the third thing that everybody can accept, everybody can understand, is that different alleles are better suited for life in different environments. So you can have all the best alleles to be the best boa constrictor in the entire world. You're going to die in a coral reef, right? You can have all the best alleles to be the best, penguin in the whole damn world. You're going to die in the Sahara Desert, right? And so when we can identify these, let's just say we have a population of fill in the blank, whatever it is, right? We have a population of things. There's going to be variation in the population. You can test that. Look around you right now. Do all these humans look the same? Do all these squirrels look the same? Do all these trees look the same? No, there's variation all the time, right? So we have this variation. That shows that there's differences in these alleles, right? If I were now to change the environment that this population is living in, then those, like the ones with certain alleles are going to live and the ones with other alleles are going to die. And what's most important is that they're not going to reproduce. The first thing we talked about is that, these genes are passed down from parent to offspring. If you're not reproducing as much as this other thing next to you, then guess what? Over the next couple of generations, their alleles are going to be way more present in the population than your alleles are. And that's the definition of evolution. The environment changed, which means these things with these alleles were able to reproduce more frequently. And so those alleles are the ones that get passed down. And meanwhile, these ones over here, they didn't work out very well. They either died before they could reproduce, or they just didn't reproduce as often. And so their alleles don't get passed down as much or at all. And if we skip forward 10 generations, 20 generations, 50 generations, whatever, we now see what we would call the allele frequency. Like the total combined genes of this population are dramatically different than they were before. And if you can understand that concept, you understand natural selection now. You understand how evolution works. And now you can start asking really important questions. Okay, well, where does this variation come from in the first place? Well, now we can talk about mutation. Okay, well, where do these animals come from in the first place? Now we can talk about speciation. Well, okay, well, if that's true, then how do we get this major change over the fossil record? Okay, well, let's talk about what's the actual fucking difference between a lobe-finned fish and an ostrich, right? What's the actual difference? If I really, really boil it down, what is the number one fundamental difference between that fish and that ostrich? It's their DNA. And so if we just agreed that DNA can change in response to environmental pressures, then all I have to ask you is, how long does it take to change this DNA from this point to that point, right? And now you're in the track of asking better and better and better questions about evolution. That's the way I would explain it to somebody who doesn't accept it right off the bat. If you can understand those three axioms: genes are passed down hair to offspring, genes come in different flavors, certain alleles are better suited for life in different environments, you now understand evolution, you understand natural selection, you can now go through with this. And yes, Monkey at Typewriter in the chat, technically an ostrich is a lobe-finned fish. That's nested hierarchies. That's why I picked those two. Yeah, that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Thank you. That helps me understand a little bit better how to understand, explain to people. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm seeing I just grabbed.
There are some. Sorry, go ahead.
That's one thing that I've been struggling with. Is I've been trying to talk to my mom about the stuff that I have been learning, and then I don't always know how to explain it the best to her. So that helps with that.
There are some books for biological noobs, like myself, that might help. There's a book called Why Evolution is True. Was it Jerry Coyne that did that one?
Yeah. Let me grab that one.
There's a couple books like that I think are helpful, because they're written for people that are not in the field. They're written for people that don't have a biology background, and they could be really helpful by giving you bite-sized nuggets to hold on to that you can actually explain to others without having to know all the lingo.
Mm-hmm. So this is Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne is a really good one. And here's another one, The Greatest Show on Earth by Richard Dawkins, which is just all about evidence for evolution. Richard Dawkins is a very prominent atheist, so may not be the best one that your parents might not accept if it comes from him. Jerry Coyne might be a less familiar name. Both of them are transphobic dickheads, though, so super religious folk might like them. Also, fun fact, I literally this semester, I'm in a graduate level evolutionary biology course, and I had to buy a new textbook for it. And this is the textbook that I'm using here. And I just cracked it open because this is the first, I've never actually checked. And literally their definition of evolution is word for word the same. The inherited change in the properties of groups of organisms over the course of generations. Or as Darwin elegantly phrased it, evolution is descent with modification. Oh, how nice. Also, another thing that the religious folks aren't going to like is the entire opening chapter of this book is the evolution of SARS-CoV-2. That's the chapter 1 is all about the evolution of COVID as an example.
Yeah. Well, thank you for recommending those. I'll have to look into that. That's,
for sure.
One thing I want to try to do is explain stuff to my family, because I know this has been hard for them too, because they don't exactly understand the questions I'm having, because my mom has never really asked these questions before, so she doesn't understand a lot of the questions I have, and she feels like, you know, she did something wrong in raising me or something because I'm like losing my faith or whatever.
Right. Yeah, because well, you're taught that as a Christian. So, you know, the Bible says, "Raise them up in the way that they should go, and they will not depart." But that's just not true.
Yeah.
That's a proverb that has no factual meaning, because as we can demonstrate, people are going to follow what makes sense to them, not necessarily just what they're given as children. And you know, my father would have been the same way. My father passed before I really deconstructed, but he would have felt the same way. He would have felt like somehow it was his fault. Um, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not sure how you could deal. I don't know that what you could do to lessen that blow, because you know parents pretty rarely take advice from their children. So like you can't tell your parent like, don't worry, it's not your fault, because reality is parents don't listen
Yeah.
to their children all that much.
I
My
also
mom
found this one
says,
over there. I was looking for other books. This is Undeniable by Bill Nye. It's Evolution and the Science of Creation, and he goes through a lot of cool stuff in there as well. It's again very plain English for novice learners. I was digging around. I've got like 50 fucking books that talk about evolution, but I'm trying to find ones that like are great for a novice, for somebody who isn't interested in this topic beyond just wanting to know what it is. You know what I mean? So you have now 3 book recommendations, and also go pick up an intro bio book because it's really cool.
Yeah. That's another question I wanted to ask you, Forrest. If I wanted to get into like more like higher education about like biology and stuff, because that's one thing I think I am interested in.
Hell yeah.
I was I was kind of raised in a family where secular college is like indoctrination, so I never even really looked into it, and we were never like encouraged to go to college or anything like that. So, what would be some good ways to like start looking into like resources or like affordable type, I guess, learning?
Yeah. So first of all, find your local community college. That's a great place to start. I started at a community college, and they're fucking fantastic because you get. So usually when we're talking about higher education, you kind of have this hierarchy of courses based on you'll have like a course number, a CRN, and so you take biology, 1003 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? The first number in that sequence is how difficult the course is, the level at which that course is being taught. The last number in that sequence is how many credit hours it's worth. Give me just 1 second. Sorry. Hey, gorgeous. You're so sweet. Thank you, baby love. My wife brought me a pizza. So the first
Working
number in
late.
that sequence is the how difficult the course is. The third number, or the last number, is the credit hour. So biology 1003 is a 1000 level course. It's the most introductory level, and the 3 at the end means it counts for 3 credit hours towards your degree. And so that kind of helps you plan. The credit hours is also typically how many hours you are in the classroom for it. So is 1003 is probably going to be taught either on Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 1 hour at a time, or Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and a half at a time, something like that, right? And you are expected to start, studying at least as long as you are in class. You should be reading at home. Most people don't do that shit. It depends on how struggling you are with the material. So totally up to you. Totally up to you. Just go at your own pace, right? And so community college is great because it is affordable, and you're going to take the same goddamn 1,000 and 2,000 level courses as you would anywhere else. If you go to fucking Harvard and take Comp 1, you are going to learn the same shit as if you go to your community college and take Comp 1. You're going to learn how to critically analyze material. You're going to learn how to write different types of essays. You're going to learn how to read properly, right? Because most people don't fucking know. They don't know how to critically read something. They don't know how to write in different tones, right? That's what you're there for. So start at a community college. You're going to take these same classes anyway. Pick a biology major or bio-related major and start digging in. Start digging in these courses. Then find yourself a 4-year university if you want to continue with it. or you're going to start taking 3,000 and 4,000 level courses. This may not be standard everywhere. I'm pretty sure something like this is, but like in my undergraduate education, undergrad means associate's and bachelor's degree, graduate means master's and doctorate degree. In my undergrad education, for where I went for my bachelor's was Northeastern State University, and they had it where if you already had an associate's degree, they would just wipe. You don't have to do any gen eds anymore. Gen eds or general education is things like intro to American, history, intro to American politics, basic composition, basic chemistry, shit like that. Just the general, everybody should know this shit, right? They wipe those requirements. So my first degree was an associate's degree in education. Then I went with a focus on science. Then I went and got my bachelor's in integrative biology. And while I was doing that, I was taking extra courses and sending my transcript back to the community college and getting more associate's degrees along the way. I have 3 associate's degrees. One's in education, one's in general biology, one's in liberal arts and biology, because I was taking extra credit hours at the 4-year university and just emailing my transcript over saying, hey, I qualify for this now, right? And they were like, I guess so. We'll mail you the diploma. It's cool. And then after I got the bachelor's, then went on for master's and then another master's, and now I'm doing a PhD. And so like you kind of just keep growing with that. And as you go, you keep specializing, you keep asking bigger and bigger questions and finding big areas of intrigue where you don't understand something. And then you find out that nobody understands that shit. And so you're going to be the one to figure it out. Right. And so that's how I would get started. Just go find the lowest level community college classes and start with the weirdest shit you can, and then work your way backwards and fill in the blanks. And you're going to get more and more excited as you go. And then you can continue growing from there and continue becoming a better and better academic, better scientist, better student. That's what you should do.
And if you don't mind me adding to that, if you're concerned about your parents not wanting you to go to secular education, I think getting them to agree to community college, you could probably work out, because you're just frame it like, hey, I'm just going here to do my prereqs and then I'll transfer to a 4-year school. Typically, they don't even know what prereqs are. They're probably going to assume that prereqs are the same everywhere. You got to take math, you got to take English, you got to do some prereqs. Do it cheaply. Do it. That's what, in fact, I did my first 2 years at a community college and then I transferred. So you'll save a ton of money and you're going to be taking prereqs that are going to be same everywhere you go. And then you can probably pretty easily convince them to let you transfer to like a really good Catholic institution. And now here's the fun thing. When it comes to like biology and science, Catholics are doing real stuff. You go to Notre Dame to take biology, you're not learning Ken Ham biology. You're learning real biology. You go to like Loyola or St. Leo or DePaul. These are really serious academic institutions. They also happen to be Catholic institutions, and you might be able to get some agreement from your parents, even if they're not technically Christian. They're at least Catholic, which gets you one step closer to, hey, at least it's not secular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's really important as you're doing this. Hold on a second. My brain just dropped that thought. We were talking about all universities and what they do. Oh, Pell Grants. That's what it was. We were talking about saving money. Girl, fill out FAFSA. Do it. Get just shit. Because like the thing is that Pell Grant is free money. It's not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. And you have a ton of it that's allocated to you. And so you fill out the FAFSA form, go to FAFSA.gov or whatever the fuck it is now, and you make an account and you fill out this form. You have to put in your parent. If you're old enough, you shouldn't have to put in your parents' information or anything like that anymore. But like, you may have to. I don't know. And you put all shit and you say, hey, I want financial aid. Do not accept loans at that level. Just take the Pell Grant, because the Pell Grant, you don't have to pay back. You don't pay back grants. You don't pay back scholarships. You pay back loans. So get the Pell Grant. And the cool thing about it is if you're at a community college, there is a very good chance the Pell Grant that they award you is way the fuck more than you need to pay for your books and materials and classes and everything like your tuition. When I was at TCC, I get Pell Grant every semester. I would have an extra couple $1,000 to live off of on that semester too. I was getting paid to go to college. So my classes were covered, my materials were covered, and I had like $1,500 that I could put towards food that year, or rent or whatever like that every semester. Do that shit. When you get up to a 4-year university, it's going to be less effective. When you get into grad school, just fuck you. But like but at the beginning at least, it's really fucking helpful to have that cushion, and you were actually making money going to college a little bit.
Yeah. Is it another question about that? Is it going to be harder since I was homeschooled to do any of that or get into colleges?
Do you have a GED or a
No.
diploma?
I have a diploma.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah,
Should
just
be a problem
start
to
at
get in.
community college. If they ask you for SATs or ACTs and you don't have them, they'll let you do an entrance exam, like a placement exam, that's similar to like an ACT, and then they'll tell you, here are the courses you need to take to catch up. Like if you're behind on math, they'll tell you, look, based on the entrance exam, you need to take a couple extra courses. But like if you start at a community college, they're not going to reject you. They're going to do whatever they can to help you catch up.
Yeah, I just so you know, I took remedial math almost as long as it took me to get my first fucking degree. I failed algebra 1 in 6th grade, kept failing it all through school. They finally just kind of passed me along in high school and were like, fuck it. And then I went to college and I took the entrance exam, like you was talking about, just not even entrance, the placement exam. And they were like, hey, you are going to go take it's not even a 1,000 level course. It's a 0 level course. And it's literally, we're going to start with what numbers are. And that's where you're going to start. And I took that class probably, no joke, 10 times. And finally I was at Tulsa Community College, and I was in an algebra 1 class, and it was the same goddamn y plus m equals mx plus b again. And I was just so frustrated. And I talked to my professor and I was like, hey, I want to be a scientist so fucking bad. I don't get math. You keep telling me these fucking formulas, and I don't think in formulas. I think in processes. And this doesn't make any sense. I don't know what this formula means, why I'm using it or anything. And she was like, oh, dope. She had a PhD in math. And she just sat there with me for 2 hours and wrote out the derivations, where every one of those formulas come from and what those numbers are doing. And suddenly I got it, because math was a language and a process now, and not just a boop, boop, boop computer. And bam, I breezed through that, went all the way up through college algebra and pre-calculus without using a calculator, got into trigonometry and calculus and statistics and shit, and took more math than I needed to for my programs, because now it was fun and it was interesting. So like, if you were homeschooled, there are probably going to be some deficits in your education that you're going to notice when you get that entrance exam back. Don't be afraid of that. You can be frustrated, you can be annoyed, you can be pissed off, you can be all those things. Don't be discouraged. You are there to learn, and everybody is at a different level. Everybody starts somewhere else. And the great thing about community college is that they are built for working professionals. Community college are supposed to represent the surrounding community. That's why they're fucking called community college. And they expect the people there to be single moms with 3 jobs just trying to get a degree. And so they are very rewarding. They are very accommodating. They have great accessibility tools. They are there to help. And if you are wherever you're at in your education when you start, guarantee they are going to give you the resources to get ahead. It might take you 30 tries, but you're going to fucking do it as long as you stick with it.
Okay, thank you. I'll definitely
have
to look into stuff you mentioned.
Well, best of luck on your journey, Rebecca. We're here. We're rooting for you. We're in your corner. If you need anything, you know where to find us.
Most definitely.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question for Justin?
Sure.
So what would be like your best like disproofs for the Bible and like that God?
Well, I think it depends on. I do believe it depends on if you're talking about the Bible as a whole or talking about Christianity. I think for me, the best disproof of.
I guess like for me, because I grew up like very like I guess fundamentalist and like the infallibility of the Bible kind of, especially like my mom's parents. My grandpa kind of did like home church every Sunday for a
Mhm.
while, and he was like super like the whole Bible is completely true and infallible and all that. So I guess that's kind of like the perspective of like that type of Christianity.
So I think there are two pieces you might want to look at. First is, does the Bible say things that are untrue? Oh yeah, for sure. So like you can even
Yeah.
start at the beginning of Mark. Mark chapter 1 has a composite quote from Isaiah and Zechariah, and he credits the whole thing to Isaiah. He totally screws the pooch and doesn't realize that part of the quote actually came from Zechariah. We find something similar in Matthew 27. In Matthew 27, when we hear about the 30 gold pieces or 30 pieces of silver, it says that the money was thrown back because of the prophecy from Jeremiah. There's no prophecy in Jeremiah, and the quotation that gets brought up in Matthew 27 doesn't come from Jeremiah. It comes from Zechariah, and it's not even a messianic prophecy about anyone being betrayed. So, like, there's really simple, dumb mistakes in the Bible where they're just like misquoting the wrong person, and those are pretty easy to find. I think there are like other problems in terms of its accuracy where you can find direct contradictions, like First Chronicles. And again, DM me after the show. I'm going to send you a document with a bunch of stuff. Like for example, in First Chronicles 21 and Second Samuel 24, we see the story of David being punished for taking the census. And when the story is
Yeah.
told, there's three different punishments he has to pick from. Well, the three different punishments aren't identical in the two different stories. One of them's off. One of them says 3 years of famine. The other says 7 years of famine. It's just a straight contradiction.
Yeah.
Um,
The explanation
and then
I
there's
got for
other
that when I
one.
was little was always sorry. The explanation I got for that when I was little was always that it was two different times of it happening or something like that. I don't really
Yeah, and then you would
like.
have to answer a lot of questions, which is because in that same chapter in both Chronicles and Samuel, after the event, David buys the threshing floor. So are you trying to
Yeah.
say that David bought the threshing floor twice? Why would he do that, right? So like
Yeah.
to say that it happened twice to me is like an absurd thing, especially when everything is word for word in the three punishment, not word for word, but everything in the three punishments match. It's clearly telling the same story from
Yeah.
beginning to end. It's just that there happens to be one detail that's just not the same. And I think to say that it happened twice certainly would be a common refrain. We hear that a lot with contradictions. Well, it's not a contradiction because it
Yeah.
happened twice. But if you just read
Yeah,
both
that's what I
chapters
got a
from
lot.
beginning to end, it's silly.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there are other contradictions that I would say are like you can't wish them away, right? So my
Yeah.
favorite is showing in Deuteronomy and in the rest of the Old Testament, like in Leviticus 16, all of these laws that God is giving. He says these are perpetual
Yeah.
statutes. You will do these laws forever. And Jesus, Matthew chapter 5 says the law is in effect until heaven and earth pass away. And then Paul comes along and
Yeah.
is like, nope, temporary. Not even, you don't even have to
Yeah,
abide by these laws anymore.
that was actually the thing that like kind of started me on deconstruction after Trump and all of that. Because I started seeing a lot of like the Torah observant Christians coming up
Right.
and like listening to them talk about it. I was like, okay, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But also, what you guys are saying doesn't like the Torah observant doesn't exactly make sense either. Because then, like, what's the point of Jesus anyway? But like, yeah, it didn't really make sense to me that like what Paul was saying seemed to completely contradict what Jesus in the Old Testament said. And I had heard like plenty of like not really satisfactory explanations when I was little,
Right.
and so it was kind of like I was already ready to question that, but I just kind of hadn't started yet.
Right. Yeah. And so I mean, the contradictions are one thing, but you know what? There's no contradiction that somebody can't lie to themselves about and find a way around it. So, for example, recently walked somebody through Acts chapter 22 and Acts chapter 9, where we get the retelling of Paul's Damascus Road conversion. And there's a straight contradiction with what happened with the men that were with Paul. It says the men were with Paul. They didn't see the light, but they heard the voice. In the other story, it says they heard the voice, or they didn't hear the voice, but they saw the light, right? It's just a straight contradiction. Somebody got something wrong. But there's no end to how many excuses Christians can make. Well, these words don't mean actually what they mean. It's a metaphor. Seeing the light actually meant like coming to the realization. Like there's nothing, like when someone's convinced that they're going to make a contradiction go away, there's nothing you can tell them that would convince them. I think the most powerful evidence for why Christianity fails, which is why it's the topic that I talk about endlessly until people get tired of me here talking about it, is the messianic prophecies of Jesus. Like if all you did was go to the prophecies that are listed in the book of Matthew, don't even worry about the other three gospels. Just go to the ones that are listed in Matthew. Go back and read them in the context of the Old Testament. There's not a single one of them that Jesus fulfills. Like one of the most popular, the virgin birth from Isaiah chapter 7, that is not about a Messiah. There's no Messiah there. And there's not even a virgin birth. It's a young woman who's pregnant during the reign of King Ahaz. And so you have to literally jump through hoops to justify why Matthew would be using the Old Testament in this particular way. And the reality is what Matthew was doing was what a lot of people were doing at the time period. They were saying, what we already have the conclusion that Jesus is our Messiah. We must go back into the Old Testament and just find whatever we can find that we can reinterpret it that has a vague familiarity with what we believe. And the Christians weren't the only ones doing it. You can find the same stuff in the Talmud. You can find the same stuff in the Dead Sea Scrolls. In fact, if you read the Habakkuk Pesher and there's another popular Pesher from the Dead Sea Scrolls, they literally go into the Old Testament prophets and they just say, well, this actually means this now. This actually means that. These words don't mean what they actually intended to mean. They mean something else. Babylon is no longer Babylon. It's the Katim. So essentially what they're doing is they're just saying the prophecies must exist somewhere. We're going to manufacture them.
Yeah.
And they do. They go into the Old Testament and they manufacture prophecies.
Yeah, that happened to me because when I first started questioning, one thing I started to do to try to see like, okay, what are some of the other perspectives on these supposed prophecies was I started listening to like rabbis on YouTube, to see like how like Jewish people interpreted the prophecies like in their own book. And, then I started like, I was emailing my grandma and she was like, oh, there's so many prophecies that Jesus fulfilled. And she sent me this big list. And I was like reading through them and like reading through the context of them because I'd always been taught my whole life, you have to read the Bible in context. And so I was like reading down this list and I realized these have nothing to do with Jesus. Half of them aren't even prophecies. Like they're just verses pulled out of nowhere that might sound kind of like Jesus. And they don't mean what my grandma was trying to make them mean. And it was really like a big realization for me. Like I've been told my whole life, you have to read the context. You can't just pull a verse out of nowhere to prove a point. And then it's like, well, that's exactly what you're doing with trying to make prophecies about Jesus.
Yep. I had a New Testament professor once that literally said, we were talking about having an exegesis paper that we had to write. And he kind of made an offhand joke, but he said, make sure your exegesis is better than the gospel authors or you're going to get an F. And the reality is what the gospel authors weren't doing was exegesis. What they were doing eisegesis. They were reinterpreting text. And I pulled up the Pesher on this should be the Pesher on Habakkuk. Let me double check. Yeah, this is the Habakkuk Pesher from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And here's a line from Habakkuk chapter 1. The line is, for I'm about to raise up the Chaldeans, that brutal and reckless people. Well, the Chaldeans are the Babylonians, right? But here's the interpretation, right, from the Pesher. It says, this refers to the Katim, who are swift and mighty in war, annihilating many people. Well, the Katim is a reference to the Greeks. Okay. So they're just saying, listen, this text is about the Babylonians, but actually, since the prophecies can't fail and they have to talk about our time period somehow, we're just going to say that we're just going to reinterpret it. These words don't mean what words mean anymore. And the same thing they were doing in Qumran is what they're doing in the New Testament. They're going into the Old Testament and just they're saying these words don't mean what they mean. They mean something new now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things I really realized. And then I was watching like Apologia's channel on YouTube, and he explained like how a lot of even prophecies like in Daniel and stuff have been
Oh yeah.
like reinterpreted or don't actually, like, I didn't realize that Daniel was written as late as it is, because I'd heard so many different explanations for that too, and
Yeah.
realizing that they
Daniel
don't really make
Daniel's one book that utterly annihilates Christianity. Nothing in the book of Daniel points towards Jesus, not a single thing. And it's clear that Jesus thought himself as the fulfillment of Daniel chapter 7. And if he wasn't, if Jesus wasn't the fulfillment of Daniel chapter 7, that means Jesus is just a buffoon. And he's not. He's not the fulfillment of Daniel 7. Daniel 7 is clearly about Archangel Michael.
Yeah, that was. It's been like a really hard thing to like realize all this stuff, because it's been a really important part of my life for so long. But I've always wanted to like know the truth about stuff and not just accept stuff because I've always been taught it, and that's caused a lot of trouble between me and my dad, especially. Me and my dad have never really gotten along in that respect, but yeah. And as far as like some of the prophecies that people try to say come true, like I think it's in Ezekiel about like Alexander the Great conquering Tyre or whatever.
That's Nebuchadnezzar, from Ezekiel.
Yeah. That's one of the ones that people act like is like one of the strongest proofs for biblical prophecy, and
except it didn't happen. Yeah. So in chapter 26, there's a proclamation against Tyre that God's going to utterly destroy Tyre. It'll never be inhabited again. It's going to be completely wiped out, right? And then all you got to do is fast forward a couple chapters later, and you discover that it actually didn't get wiped out. And he has to give you an excuse, right? So if you go to chapter 29, he gives you the excuse like halfway through the chapter, or maybe closer to the end of the chapter. It says, in the 27th year, in the first month, Ezekiel 29. It says, the mortal king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon made his army labor against Tyre. Every head was made bald and every shoulder was rubbed bare, yet neither he nor his army got anything from Tyre to pay for the labor that he had expended against it. Therefore says the Lord God, I will give the land of Egypt to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, and he will carry off its wealth. So in the 3 chapters later, he's recognizing that the prophecy didn't come true. And he's like, okay, well, God changed his mind. Since you didn't get what you wanted from Tyre, I'll give it to you from Egypt.
Yeah. I guess I never realized that before. Probably the prophecy books were the books that we read the least when I was little. So
that was true of my Christian. That when I was a Christian, nobody read the prophets. People hardly read the Old Testament. That's why when I was in Bible college and seminary, I decided to specialize in the Old Testament because nobody was doing it. And I always thought to myself, if the New Testament is true, we have to start with, well, what about the Old Testament? Is the Old Testament true? Because if the Old Testament is true, who gives a shit what's in the New Testament, right? And so it turned out by studying the Old Testament, I pretty quickly studied myself out of Christianity.
Yeah. I guess, I've always just been encouraged, like, whenever I started questioning, like, oh, go read Romans again. And it's like, well, if I can't read the whole book and have it make sense, then just reading this one little part that might be encouraging to me. I don't just want to be reinforcing my belief because part of it sounds nice.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
I'm glad
I
to
don't
help,
want to
Rebecca.
take up
If you
all
need
the
anything,
time.
do reach out.
Yeah.
This has been an awesome call. We covered so much.
Thank you.
Holy crap, it's hard to know where to begin.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do reach out if you need anything in the future, okay?
And we
Thank you.
raise so much money. We raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for recovering from religion. So use them as a resource too. If you want to talk to somebody who has been where you are at and you want to help with that, like please use the resources that we support, because we support them for a reason.
Yeah, thank you. I've been really wanting to find some other resources because I kind of feel isolated a lot of the time and don't get a lot of recommendations for anything except more Christian stuff. So
Yep.
Right. Yeah, we're in a
Thank you, guys.
minority, but there are people that can help support you. Have a great night, Rebecca.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Take care,
Cheers.
Rebecca. Bye.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, executive producer of The Line, and I only became a woodworker for the puns. That's not important. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so on our Patreon or as a channel member, and you can actually support specific shows and specific hosts in special tiers on those. Check those options out. Also, you can leave a super thanks and get a little highlighted deal. But if all else fails, you can always you can subscribe and leave a comment. Now, here are some suggestions because I don't care about the algorithm. I am the algorithm. Bye.